Okay, we're good.
We're good. We are doing our second take at starting tonight's meeting. So it is 7:03 and welcome to the May 20, 2019 Township Committee of Bedminster regular meeting. I recognize that we have a full plate of Township Committee here. Ms. Sullivan, can we please have the Open Public Meetings Act?
Yes, sir. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was sent to the Courier News in Somerville and the Burnsville News in Whippany. Also to all subscribers and posted here at the Municipal Building as of January 7th, 2019.
Great. Thank you, Judy. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone had the opportunity to go through the two meeting minutes that are on the agenda? That's the May 6th regular Township Committee meeting and the closed executive session. Any comments that have not otherwise been provided to Ms. Sullivan?
Nope.
Nope. Can we have a motion to approve both minutes?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
I'll second. I need to abstain.
You need to abstain?
I need to abstain as well.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And abstaining is Mr. Stevenson and Ms. Santucci.
Correct.
Permits and raffles, we have three tonight. Make sure that both my lists match up. Yep, three. The first is social fair permit for the Hope Chest Scholarship Foundation, event held at Fiddler's Elbow Country Club on June 12, 2019, from 8:30 a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. Next is the raffle license for JDRF, New Jersey Metro and Rockland County Chapter, event held at Fiddler's Elbows Country Club on June 10, 2019 from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's off-premise merchandise. And the last is raffle license for Beauty Foundation for Women's Cancer Care, Inc., held at Trump National Golf Club on July 8, 2019 from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on-premise merchandise. Any questions or comments regarding the permits and raffles?
Nope. No.
Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve the permits and raffles.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So once again, twice each night, we open up that microphone for public comment. If any member of the public has any comments for any issue that's not otherwise on the agenda, now's a good opportunity. There will be a second opportunity later in the meeting. Seeing none, let's go to monthly report discussions by subcommittee chair, and we'll start with Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to give you, if you don't mind, a two-meeting synopsis because I wasn't able to make the last meeting. So since the last time I was here, I attended the Hills Master Association meeting led by Ms. March, and went up there, answered questions, just basically let me know that we're here if they need us, that they're doing a good job and they're running stuff, but we're certainly here to help out in any way. Nothing of significance really to report back. One of the members was asking about the assessments and the notices from our assessor to gain access to properties and what is it the folks are looking for. So I thought that might be a good thing that perhaps we can ask Mr. Kerwin to perhaps just put something out there. This is what we're typically looking for. This is what we're not concerned about, because I think a lot of people have some misperceptions about that process. And then I attended the historic preservation meeting, went very well. Nothing again out of the ordinary from the meeting itself. Wendy Hickey did a presentation for the Historic Preservation Committee, went into the school this week and actually spoke to the 4th grade class. And she met Master Brady Stevenson and his buddies. Hopefully they didn't torture her too much, but she basically went into the presentation about what is historic preservation and what does it mean and why is it that we do the things that we do in that committee and what are the things we're trying to do, and try to, just sort of educate the school community. I think sort of taking your suggestion, Mayor, of getting these committees more involved in our community and giving back and sort of teaching as well as running things. So great first step by Wendy, and from all accounts, it was a hit. They loved having her come in, and I guess anything's nice to break up the day with the teacher, but they had a great time, and Wendy reported that it went very well, so hopefully more to come in that. Still continuing to work through stuff with John on DPW, but all is somewhat quiet.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, all. A couple quick updates. Rec, the fields are wet. No surprise there.
Why?
John, can you do something about that?
Gonna build an ark pretty soon.
But thanks to John, Burnt Mills Field got a little TLC with some split seating and aeration completed, so thank you, John, appreciate that. Pluckman Schoolhouse Park, as we begin our refurbishments, 4 replacement benches have been ordered, as well as 3 in-ground mount pedestal picnic tables. So you'll start to see those improvements over the course of the next couple of months, and obviously more in store for that. And Mr. Bellardo might be interested that the Bedminster 5K Summer Series at River Road Park will be held for 7 weeks during the summer, starting Thursday, June 13th at 7 p.m. and every 2 weeks thereafter. There you go. John already has it. I should have known. So you run on Thursday evening, and then you go to the farmer's market on Saturday, and you can get whatever you want and eat whatever you want. Quickly on Board of Health, we had a meeting last Thursday. One septic application was reviewed and approved. The board is also reviewing marijuana ordinances that have been passed in our neighboring towns, and they're going to be preparing a set of recommendations for the review by the Township Committee. Dr. Agathis is leading that work along with Board Attorney Beck. And finally, Committeewoman Antucci and I attended the County Community Development Block Grant Presentation Day on May 8th. These are community facility and service projects that are funded by federal HUD grants. There were a lot of very worthwhile projects that we saw. Unfortunately, there's more projects than available money. So there had to be some tough decisions. Stacy can fill in some of the blanks on. You did public facilities and infrastructure, I did public services.
We switched this time.
Yes, we did. There were $1.25 million in requests, but only $994,000 could be funded. So like I said, some difficult decisions need to be made. There were some really worthwhile projects that were presented to I'm sure, both of us. I don't know, Steve, if you want to add on
Yeah,
that
sure.
one.
I think we did a little bit better. We basically funded all the requests, all the applications, and we just had to reduce it by a little bit for each one, but at least everybody left with something. But the presentations really open your eyes as to what's out there and what's needed. There were a lot of presentations for generators, and each one's actually unique and different. But when you look at the proposals just on the paper, you're trying to figure out, why would they need this? I felt very lucky actually because we are able to do, a lot here in Bedminster. So it was, eye-opening. But we were able to fund, mostly all.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, there's a lot of we had some, since we couldn't fund everything, that public services are capped at 15% of the total HUD funding. So you really had to make some hard decisions, and there are some real programs for those who are disabled, or mentally challenged, or anything like that. And there were some very spirited discussions, let's say, because these programs, particularly for children, once they become 21 and have access to no other programs, this is it. So what the county does is really important, and these programs play a key role in helping these families. So I'm glad we're able to do a little bit to fund that.
Yeah, and they have a very small staff. I mean,
Yeah.
And they do it with 4 people, 5
Yep,
people,
yep.
and they take in all these proposals. They prepare everything for us, and they're still doing their day-to-day normal work.
Right.
When these applications are presented to you, they're presented to you by county staff, not by the applicants.
Correct.
No, but then we
The
get them.
applicants go to the
But the
county
applicants
staff.
attend and have the opportunity for comment?
Well, the applicants would come in on presentation day and then give us their pitch after we've seen what is in the pitch book.
So back in April, we kind of meet, and everybody
Right.
kind of gets acclimated as to what the purpose is. There's some people who are new on the committee. And then in May, they do the presentation, but we've already they do a pre-ranking and a post-ranking of the presentations. An interesting process.
Yeah. But in some cases, for example, we had a mother of a child who needed some of these services, and she advocated on behalf of that program. It was a powerful presentation. Like, wow, there's a real need here. So it's eye-opening.
It is, and I know we have probably information here as to what the county does, but it almost makes you want to kind of put that together to make sure everybody knows, or have a link. Do we have a link on our website to the county services? for human services?
I believe so,
Yeah.
but I'll double check.
That would be something just good to have, because they offer so much, and, you know, when we're going through the presentations, you really don't know until you're reading, like, wow, I didn't know that 144 kids went to that program.
Right,
And
right.
they need an air-conditioned and a heated place to take. We kind of take that maybe a little bit for granted.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So good work, and, you know, it's tough decisions, but, you know, when you're sitting there with that set of money, and you have to make those decisions, you know, you guys are doing great work there.
People take it very, very seriously.
They do. They
around the
really do.
room. And,
Good.
That's
Do
it.
you have anything further?
No, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Okay, Ms. Santucci.
Next Fall Fest meeting is May 28th. I believe AT&T is still interested in providing us with the screens, with the TV, so that's, you know, last year we were so excited that was going to happen, and then we had, you know.
And they didn't have enough
bad
time
weather.
to do everything they wanted to do, so now hopefully it'll even be better.
We have plenty of time, so that's really exciting, so hopefully we'll do that this year. And also just an update on the pony farm. I know Colin received some numbers, some estimates with regard to repairs there. The nonprofit that was interested is still interested. They're going to resubmit maybe a little bit more detailed proposal. So they said hopefully before August, they, you know, maybe something can be on the way.
Okay.
Okay.
John, the Pony Farm. John, when's the last time we've had anyone go in there to check it out?
It's only in the list.
Probably a couple months ago, when we let some of the contractors in to do some estimates.
Any reason with the changes is to just send someone through? Okay. Good. Ms. Mareski?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things with JBH. The last couple weekends, May 10th through 12th and 18th through 19th, they had a art showing by John Philip Osborne. They've done this for a few years. Mr. Osborne paints revolutionary subjects, and they put up a whole bunch of these paintings in JBH. They host a little cocktail gathering, and people bid on people purchase the paintings, and there's I think it's 10% JBH gets from each one of the paintings, so it's a nice little fundraiser, and they did pretty well. Just to remind everybody that the summer soiree is coming up June 1st. Please get your tickets. I don't know if you've seen that the flags are up on the highway, so if you would like to donate on the JVH website, they won't be doing tags, as I mentioned last meeting, but it's a sentiment you can leave on the website for a donation for each flag. And just as a reminder, it's a casual cocktail party, and the music is by these two guys. Somebody
Souza?
back at the farmer's market.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
Okay. Well, we do anything from EC? We do.
I've had a meeting. Oh,
Okay. All right. Figured
But if
we take
any-
advantage of having the EC chair.
if there's anything you want to share that's gone on?
I think I need speaking a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, some updates. So Farmers Market, Renee and I and Colin was in as well on some of the issues on Farmers Market. June 1. So June 1 is opening day. The signs are up. Thank you very much to Far Hills Bedminster Fire Company for getting the banners up on 202 and on Somerville Road right out here. And I believe the other banner going over Schley is going up
On the bridge.
on the bridge, I think tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So that's great. Last year it was me and Robin and my boys doing, tying it up with zip ties. I imagine that probably a little more professional this year, but
The zip ties are still there.
zip ties are still
Yeah,
there.
they
Okay,
held it.
that's right.
That's-
Well, we know they held up.
Good job.
Well, good job with the zip ties. It's be a great farmers market this year. We've got more vendors coming. We have actually, by charging, we actually have funds available to purchase and improve the banners, to get additional signage out. You said the sandwich boards, the A-frames are already out there. Saw an email that Robin sent earlier saying that folks were showing up this Saturday because they saw the signs and thought it was already June, but it's not. So just give us another week and a half and we'll be there. And just trying to think of anything else on Farmers Market. Check the Facebook and Instagram accounts for updates on Farmers Market, who's going to be there. Since we have a lot of new vendors, opportunity to learn about the new vendors, and also we have a series of pop-up vendors who may only be at the farmers market for 1 or 2 or 3 times during the season. So for folks who want to know who's going to be there, who's going to be special, check the Facebook and Instagram accounts. Also, there'll be community events with the library, Center for Contemporary Arts will be there, RHA will be there. So I'll have a series of community groups that will be cycling through, as well as musical events as well with these 2 guys and John McCormick. Yes?
July 20th.
July 20th. And some other local celebrity musicians making their appearances at the farmers market. So stay tuned, and I'm sure it won't be the last time we talk about it.
Farmers Market.
Farmers market. The Essex trials, June 21 to June 23, 2019, coming up later on in the month. I did have a meeting with Ralph Jones from the Essex Horse Trials, who's the volunteer coordinator for the horse trials. This is a really very nice, super casual event. Unlike the races where it's very formal, there's a lot of partying, this is truly an opportunity to come out and see folks doing their best on horses. Many different events from dressage to jumps to the cross-country races. Folks can show up, you just walk in. There's a bit of admission fee, but Ralph actually was kind enough to drop off some free admission passes for township employees, and there's probably a number sitting up at the counter right now. So if anyone wants to come by and pick up couple free tickets, I'm sure that staff isn't going to mind handing them out. You can take your bike there, bring your dogs there. Once again, very casual. For anyone who's looking for an introduction to what horse events are like, it's a great opportunity, and also once again supports the local equine and equestrian facilities that we have in Bedminster. So I certainly encourage everyone who can to go attend. The Land Use Board. At the last Land Use Board, we approved a expansion of a residential house on Black River Road, and tying to something that the Historic Preservation Committee had come up with and presented back to the Township Committee. So for folks who don't remember, Historic Pres had some issues with the abundance of the flag or feather signs that we see across town. That memo was presented to the Township Committee. In turn, the Township Committee referred it over to the Land Use Board. Land Use Board is actually interested in doing a little further evaluation into the feather or flags signs that are out there. We all know what they look like: pizza, bagels, nails, whatever they say, breakfast, nails. Right now, we understand that it is one sign per establishment, or is it one sign per property? So there seems to be a little bit of confusion as to what is actually allowed under the current zoning ordinance on that. And at the same time, we have all seen some establishments with multiple signs. So the question is it an enforcement issue or is it a zoning issue? But the Land Use Board has taken this up, and will be making recommendations internally, and they're going to meet with the planner and the engineer and report. They'll have a subcommittee and report back to the full Land Use Board, which will then make a presentation back to us. So Doug, at your next Historic Pres meeting, you can actually tell Sean and all that it's getting some traction. And
Great.
There'll be action or may not, but
Sure.
certainly it'll be discussed. On May 15th, I and Paul Ballone attended a presentation at the library for Meet the Mayors. So we had about maybe about 12 people attend and ask questions about what was going on between the two towns, asking the difference between a borough and a township committee, asking about how the way things were formed, asking about affordable housing and zoning issues. And it was also interesting, there was a comment made about what the towns are trying to do to establish and prop up the non-residential, right? So it's the retail, and commercial enterprises. And a question came up about, are you guys familiar with Bellworks down in Homedale? So I had the opportunity to talk about the Bellworks facility, how we brought the land use board and some Township Committee members down to the Bellworks facility to see what it looks like and see how these large suburban office properties, single user campuses are being reconverted, and whether that's a model for anything here in Bedminster or surrounding areas. That's to be determined, but certainly something that we were familiar with and on top of. And I think from the comments that I heard afterwards, it sounds like the Township Committee got it under control. Trust you guys very much. So that was very good. It was very good to hear. And then we had the library board meeting later that night, and I think there's going to be some improvements that we are talking about making at the library. Finishing up the Betty Merck room, which I believe at this point is just about complete. And there's some
Library needs a few more improvements after the week.
Library needs a few more improvements. We'll come to that shortly. I also do want to report on last week I got an email from John Nance saying that Lake 22A was drained. So with a couple of emails back and forth with Meredith Hammond over at DOT, we had asked Meredith to have the contractors at DOT look to expedite the draining of the former 22A ramp, which had been, a pond or something bigger than a pond for the last several months. And we did get the email from Meredith saying that she would talk to the contractor about moving that work up. She first email said it was scheduled for June, mid to the end of June. And when John sent me that email, I was pleased to see that we got that in mid-May. So it's drained. Drove by every day. It looks a little bit different. So they did the milling. It looks like they're filling it in with soil. And I imagine within the next week or so, they'll probably see.
The site, when I went by there today, is getting cleaned up very well.
That's great. That's great. So I know a number of our residents were complaining about that eyesore of the former ramp, and got it under control. So thank you to the folks at DOT and their contractors for moving that up. One last thing that I did want to talk about is BHHC. I did have a meeting with Renee, and I actually had a meeting with John Bellardo and asked John to actually put together a memorandum for the Township Committee on the history of BHHC, the relationship with the municipality, and its founding as directed by court order or a consent decree. I'm not sure how we ended up, but something that we will look at as we evaluate BHHC, sort of in this time where we're seeing units come off extensions, the amount of units that are currently under control or under the auspices of BHHC is changing. So that relationship itself may change. So I asked Sean to put together a memo that we can all look at and get a better understanding and know what our options are as we move forward. So there's a lot of documents for John to walk through. So what do you think? No timing on that?
It's on my list.
All right, that's-
I got a box of 4 documents I took back to the office late Friday, so.
All right, well, we can see what Lizette's doing this weekend, so.
No, it'll be John Bellardo doing it.
All right.
Not an associate.
All right, so that's the, my report. But we did talk briefly about some changes over at the library, so, Chief,
Sir.
mind giving us a little, what happened
I
there?
can report such that we had a non-resident respond to our wonderful library at about 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, pulling into a spot, I guess to the northern side. If you're looking at the entrance of the library, we'll call it the western side in the front with the glass atrium. Decided to press on the accelerator rather than the brake as we're coming into the parking space. Went up over the curb, and then we kind of made a right-hand turn, striking the glass entrance. Luckily, there wasn't anybody on the sidewalk. The operator of the vehicle was fine. The vehicle was towed from the scene. Building inspectors came out, deemed that the library could stay open. and, you know, they just had to have somebody come out and, you know, make it safe so he couldn't go in or out through the missing panels.
So the most important part is that no one was injured, right? So everyone was safe from that. The library remains open. I did drive by. I was out of town during the afternoon, but drove by yesterday evening to see the damage. Colin, I know you went by as well, and you see it's the front entrance, but it wasn't the front doors. It was really from the side. As the chief said, it's sort of they came in, drove through the landscaping and clipped the glass panel at the side of the entrance rather than the front of the entrance. Once again, library is open, boarded up, and I'm sure they'll be making the necessary repairs. And there was a series of emails between library board members actually this afternoon about making certain repairs and what could be done to prevent this from happening. As we all know, this happened just a few months ago over at the Quick Check. And I believe this is not someone said this is not the first time this happened to the library?
Yeah. Last year there was somebody.
Was it last year?
Took out some landscaping.
Oh, it was just landscaping, that's right. They didn't hit the door. So couple ideas that were thrown out there, maybe decorative boulders or bollards or something else to prevent that, but.
Sign that says no drive-through.
Yeah. So that's my report. And Ms. Sullivan, the administrator's report.
Couple things, just like to remind everybody that the primary election is Tuesday, June 4th. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. There's some, what shall I say, repairs and upgrades that JCP&L is doing in the hills, and there was a question as to whether this project would impact the polling location up at Artillery Park. I did have a conversation with Tom Haynes. They don't believe the project will impact the polling location at all. However, they are going to refrain from any of the repairs in that area on the 4th. They're going to pretty much keep their repairs to the Child Care Center area on Tuesday, June 4th, and then they'll move to some other locations on Wednesday and Thursday, so that should be fine. As Renee said, the Field of Honor, if you drive by, is out there with the help of John and his crew. It got put up the end of last week. It is up, it was nice to expand it to Memorial Day through, I guess, July 4th, or July 7th, I think it's up. So. John and I have been meeting with a local resident who's a master gardener who has volunteered. She went to Clarendon Library to the community garden, got a couple of people there to help volunteer as well. And we will be providing some plants, but she has offered to do some plantings around the police station and the municipal building. So she's a master gardener. She came to us with a plan. So you might hopefully see that project in the next couple of weeks. So.
Great, and we've given her some budget to get flowers and plantings.
Yep.
I believe she's going to go to one of our box stores with us. She'll pick out whatever she wants and then we will purchase it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, she came, she's just recently retired and offered her services and thought it was a great idea. Colin mentioned that HPC did a program, or maybe it was Doug, I'm forgetting. Anyway, the HPC did a 4th grade program at the school last week. The same 4th grade will be doing a trip here to visit Town Hall on June 17th, Monday, June 17th. And they're going to get a program about municipal history. I'll be pulling out the 1749 minute books to show them, what they used to do at those meetings, and some of the vital records from way back then. They're pretty interesting. I think Sean Blinn is going to be doing a presentation on the history of Bedminster, and Robin Ray is going to be bringing some artifacts from Jacobus Vanderveer. So we'll have probably about an hour and a half presentation here for the 4th grade. So we have about 75 kids coming.
Oh, that's great.
So that'll be fun. And in front of you, you all got a green ribbon, which if you don't remember, that's for Memorial Day. If you're going to be with us, It's a dash. 10 o'clock at the intersection of Elm Street and 202 near the Veterans Memorial. I know the Far Hills Bedminster Fire Company is host for the day. They usually invite the mayor to say a few words. And I think the chief provides some armed individuals who used to be veterans from both our department and Far Hills Department who will do a gun salute. And I think there might be some music by Bedminster School Band and decorated bicycles and Girl Scouts and Cub Scouts and all kinds of people decked out. They'll start at the memorial there at Elm Street and 202, go down to the light by Peapack Road, make a left onto Peapack, and end up at the memorial down in front of the Far Hills Municipal Building. And then end up for free hot dogs and lemonade at the fairgrounds hosted by the fire company. So
Who's going to hand out the hot dogs and lemonade this year, Judy?
unfortunately, the administrator is not going to be handing hot dogs out this year. She will be out of town. But
Well, enjoy your
I'll be there.
trip, and we will miss you there.
Yeah, the fire company has disowned me. So,
Don't worry, Judy, we'll
well,
FaceTime you during the parade.
my title of Queenie Weenie has been taken by someone else. So,
That's a funny title.
but that's all I have.
Thank you, Judy. Next is discussion on introduced ordinance scheduled for public hearings, opportunity for public questions, and we do not have any introduced ordinances. Consent agenda. So we have a number of items on the consent agenda. If anyone wants to pull anything off the consent agenda for individual discussion, you can do so now. Otherwise, may we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
So moved. Second. Sorry.
This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
And resolutions, we have a number of resolutions. Let me just make sure that, once again, the two lists line up. Okay, the first resolution is Resolution 2019-049, which is the adoption of the 2019 budget. This was introduced by Resolution 2019-041 on April 1, 2019. We had the public hearing on May 6, 2019, and the resolution is now 2019-049.
If I could make a quick comment, the state, we are full review this year. The state did review our complete budget. We had a lot of back and forth communication with the state and our auditor and our CFO and myself. There really weren't any real concerns. The one comment that was made, and you'll see it show up in a resolution here tonight, was they suggested that we offer healthcare waivers to those employees that waive health benefits, and they indicated that that should be kept in a separate line item where we had it in with all the health benefit costs. So we have to separate that out into a separate line item. So we have to actually amend the budget by a correction to title or text of an appropriation. We actually do an official amendment by resolution. So you'll see that. But that's what that's about.
And
But otherwise, everything is good.
And we don't have to reread.
You do not.
We don't have to reread.
We're just
Okay.
ready for a vote.
Okay. So, are there any questions or comments regarding the resolution or further questions for Judy? If not, can we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
This is a roll call vote as well. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Next is Resolution 2019-053. This resolution certifies the governing body's hiring practices are in compliance with EEOC guidelines.
Okay, so this is another, something new we need to send down with our budget tomorrow. There are guidelines regarding background checks. Currently, we don't do background checks for new employees in administration or public works. The police department does. They have a specific process that they must follow, and they do. What this policy is basically saying is if we are going to do a background check for applicant A, we would need to do the same for applicant B and C and treat everyone the same if we're going to implement this policy. We can't be, oh, we're going to only do it on this particular individual because we have a concern. No, if you're going to do it, you need to do it to all. Currently, we don't do the background checks, but if we were going to, we would need to follow that policy.
Okay. And with this new policy, does this present another opportunity for the HR consultant to get involved with, or is this?
Yes. Yes.
So if
that
there
was
was
part
an
of the
EOC.
review process.
Okay, so if there was the review, then the HR consultant would
Correct.
be involved in that review?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding the resolution?
So there will be an affidavit that the Township Committee will
Right.
sign, which it just says that you are aware of the policy and that you made yourself familiar with the information I distributed.
So if no questions and seeing none, can we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
Next is Resolution 2019-054. This resolution authorizes the award of the contract for 6 EV charging stations at 1 Miller Lane to SunCycle Renewable Energy LLC at 3600 Route 66, Suite 150, Neptune, New Jersey, in the amount of $29,995. Ms. Sullivan, do we have anyone to talk to us about this,
I think we do.
about this award of
I
contract?
think we do. I think the environmental chair is ready to give you a summary.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Township Committee, Towns, Sorry.
Just because he's sitting at the table.
He lives in the hills.
Well, I just want to give you a little refresher. This has been going on for about a year and a half now, and finally, it looks like we're moving forward. So I just wanted to thank, we have a subcommittee on the EC, which made up myself and Dawn Mark. She couldn't make it tonight, but she wanted to be. Just a little late notice. Also wanted to thank our township liaison, Renee, who's been very involved, and also Judy and John, who have been sitting in a lot of the meetings with the contractor. So, we've been talking about this for a long while, just because we've been waiting for the funds, about a year, maybe a little longer. You guys went and said, let's go ahead and fill out the application. Judy did that, and we got accepted, and so we were just waiting for the funds to come about. So they came about, I guess.
Well, we got the full notification early beginning of the year, so we were able to put it in the budget, so.
Yes, we finally got the money. So now we've gone through some back and forth drawings. Ex-Mayor Holtway helped out a little bit, looking at some engineering plans. John helped out a lot, so I thank him for that. And it looks like we're going to submit those plans to, as long as all goes well here, and this gets approved, we're going to submit that to to get some permits, and we're hopefully going to break ground sometime in July. Okay? And then they're thinking about maybe a month, maybe a little longer. I'm being conservative, but I don't want to get too excited too soon. Once again, this is not money, this is not taxpayer money, this is money that's given to us through the Volkswagen settlement fund because of the diesel, whatever you want to call it, diesel scandal, whatever, the word. And so that's that, but we're going to have 6 stations. We did put it out to bid as well, trying to make sure of that. And SunCycle is the same company that installed the solar panels in the back. So we're going to be able to integrate it right in. It's their system. We're not going to have any finger pointing. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. So we're good there. Okay.
Okay, where the actual station is going to be located?
They're going to be located underneath on the island behind, I always forget where we are here.
Right here in the building.
Sorry,
the building.
back that way, I was thinking that. There's going to be, back to back. And John came up with a good idea, which was maybe put them on, we'll have 3 pedestals there, and we'll have them, on back-to-back, the individual charging stations themselves. And we're also going to future-proof it, so we're going to make sure that there's some extra conduit run down in case we want to add some more, so we don't have to go through the expense of ripping everything up and we're running some more conduit.
That's great. That's great. So John, it'll be the 3 at the end on either side of the island,
Right next to where the electric is.
where the electric panel is right now?
Is this power source going to be from the solar panels?
Well, it'll be a mix. Right now, that solar panels, panels, they energize, I think it goes into the
Right.
building and then it kind of
It goes into
come
the
back
grid.
out. But, yes,
Okay.
Well,
in a way.
in a way,
Okay.
no, is really the answer.
Yes, no, maybe?
So it's grid supply.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the same electrons that come from the solar panel go into the grid.
Right.
So yes, some of those electrons may work their way back to
All
the
those
EV
little
charging
spots.
station.
But the solar panels are not dedicated in any way to this system. They're a pumping system, the main grid with
We had an
energy, and then
electrical
we're drawing
engineer
back out.
on this dais.
Yeah.
Perhaps they could explain that.
I was on TV.
Okay. We have to call Bob Holtaway back to,
How about a fleet? A fleet?
well, that's certainly something for the future, right? This is something that when I was on EC, and certainly when Colin and Renee were, that we talked about, that this is coming. This is not, this is coming. Municipalities and other governmental entities relying on EV vehicles is not something that's way up in the future, it's in the near future. And some
When we put the
municipalities are
budget
already doing it.
together, we didn't have the state bid yet for the electric vehicles. But we do have money in the budget to purchase a car for the construction department this year, and we may be able to entertain, depending on the final contract, we may be able to entertain a potential electric vehicle.
There is no state contract at this point on.
Right.
Right,
I'm
but
sure it's coming.
It's coming.
Do we
It's gonna
know,
change.
I'm a little bit late to the party, and kudos to all the work you've done here in procuring this facility. It's great. I think it's something we need and something that will be very useful. But for the short term, do you happen to know whether these devices that are going to be the charging stations have to be run every so often? And I'm just wondering, if we don't have the fleet right now, should we be asking someone in town to come by to make sure that these things are actually being used? Is it something like if you don't use it, you lose it? No, in terms of, and I don't mean like in terms of the energy, I'm talking about the ability of the unit to run. Like certain jet airplanes have to be turned on, the engines have to spin every so often, or else things start breaking. Do we know?
Just like the big extension cord, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Great work. Thank you.
So the one thing we do need to consider, though, is that these are dedicated spots based on what the application is for the grant. So we need to kind of look at that for the future of how we're going to accept it in court days, and how we're going to run the parking lot from here on out.
Yeah, on Tuesdays, especially when we have a full court day, we have all the employees parked down behind the firehouse because we don't have enough spots to accommodate people attending court. If we're going to take 6 spots out of the mix, that's impactful, so I don't know if we can.
No, that's an enforcement thing, chief over here might be able to,
I mean, I was going to have signs.
That was nice, Tim. It may be too late. It may be too late.
We got the motion in 5 minutes, that was awesome.
You just said tell chief to write less tickets.
Yeah, but, getting back to what you had said before, it's like what comes first, do you put the infrastructure in first, or you get the cars first? And in this instance,
Opportunity
you
now.
need to have the infrastructure.
Absolutely.
And they were, and the money was available. I think as we move forward, as the mayor said, they're not going to be giving money to set up this infrastructure. They're not going to be giving money for the vehicles anymore because it's going to be.
Pays to be ahead of the curve.
Right.
Yeah,
This is the
absolutely.
incentive to get there.
No doubt. I
Right.
think it's great.
And since we don't have those vehicles now, so the parking demand, look, the parking demand is not being, it's not being filled by vehicles that are charging today or after July. So those parking spots are still viable parking spots until such time as we do have municipal EVs.
Just so that we have some guidance.
And just so you know, this is for township vehicles, to start off with. It's not going to be open to the public right away. That's going to be a decision you guys will have to make, but it'll be exclusive use for township vehicles and employees.
Great.
Right. And I just want to give 2 shout outs. First of all, well testing is on June 1st for Environmental Commission, same day as Farmers Market. And we will be also having a moth night again. It's pretty crazy.
Is Blaine?
And that's going to be on
Blaine-
June 28th, and it's going to be off.
June 28th?
June 28th.
28th, it's going to be off.
Is it Blaine again?
Blaine.
No.
Lane likes his malls, we know that.
He does.
He does.
Yeah, not so much with children, but he really likes moths.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Well
Tim.
done.
Great
So,
work.
any other questions or comments for either Judy or for Tim on the resolution? Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci? Aye. Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you.
And once again, I guess I was the liaison when this issue first came up, and Tim Walter jumped on this like that. And really, for the past, it feels almost longer than a year and a half, that he shepherded, he researched the grant, found out where the money was coming from, worked with folks down at DEP. There was some concern that with the change of administrations, perhaps the dedication to this grant program might wilt. It did not. And really, Tim put this all the way through. So to everyone, certainly that Tim mentioned, who worked with him on the grant application, Judy and John and Renee, but Tim, thank you, and Dawn, but Tim, thank you much for managing this and putting it all the way through. So,
Agreed. Thank you, Tim.
there's more. Resolution 2019-055. This resolution appoints a municipal prosecutor for the shared court in 2019. Ms. Sullivan, there must be a story behind that.
So, about 2 weeks ago, I received correspondence from the current prosecutor that he was resigning. Not much notice that I had. He is prosecutor in other towns. He resigned in all the towns where he was prosecutor. So, don't know if there's more to that story. Doesn't matter. Judge House came into my office and we quickly put together a Plan B. Got in touch with Miles Winder, who was of counsel with Mr. Taylor, our prosecutor, and also our former prosecutor. He said he would happy to fill the spot temporarily until we were able to put out a formal RFP to, appoint a new prosecutor. So he's filling in. He's certainly qualified. He is available till the end of the summer, depending on how long it takes us. I don't anticipate this to take that long, but we are putting together an RFP now. We hope to get it out the early part of June.
So for those who don't know, Miles Winder is the former New Jersey State Bar president. He is very well respected among the, certainly within the bar, but certainly the criminal branch as well. He has been a prosecutor. He has also been a judge. I was a judge in Burnsville at the time that we moved Burnsville into the shared court. He would have been available, when we were searching for a prosecutor last year, Miles Winder was one of the top choices that we had. At the time, he thought he was going to be moving out to the West Coast and therefore had limited ability to serve for the entire year. In retrospect, he actually stayed, and he could have had that position for the full year. So moving to Miles Winder for the next several months and maybe beyond that is no, we're not suffering here. This is a great position for us and for Miles until such time as we can find a permanent replacement, or if Miles decides that he's not moving for another year, then it's another opportunity to keep him around. Any other questions for Ms. Sullivan?
This was also circulated to both PPAC Gladstone and Burnsville, who also need to adopt a similar resolution, which they are in the process of doing. I will be collecting them. Their meetings, are at different times. I don't have them all yet, but they will be forthcoming.
Right. So if no questions or comments, May we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve 2019-055.
Second. Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Santucci. Ms. Moreski. Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thanks.
Next is Resolution 2019-056. This resolution authorizes a correction in the title or text of an appropriation appearing in the Township's 2019 budget.
It's what I spoke about. We're moving some funding to, out of healthcare to put into healthcare waivers. They have to be separate. So that was the one correction we had from my review.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Ms. Sullivan? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve Resolution 2019-056.
Second. Again, roll call vote. Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye. Resolution 2019-057. This resolution authorizes the hiring of a violations clerk in the shared municipal court.
We have been without a violations clerk since February 1st. We had we went to the college, Renton Valley, and found someone that was currently taking classes and asked them if they would like to fill a temporary position. They did so. They worked out very well. They were only part-time. That person has now completed their classes and is completely qualified to be a violations clerk. She would then be full-time and fill that position that's been empty since February 1st.
And the report is that he's doing a fine
Doing a great
job.
job, learning quickly, she's, has a law enforcement background. She used to work for Morris County Jail prior to going to classes, to be on the other side in the court.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments on the resolution? Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve?
Does Far Hills and the other folks need to do a similar resolution?
No, because they are a Bedminster employee.
Okay.
So we hire the staff and then we essentially share those expenses across the shared court.
Correct.
And we have the right to hire as we see fit?
Yes, the prosecutor is an appointment that all three towns must do.
Great.
Good question.
Occasional. A move to approve 2019-057.
Second. Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye. Resolution 2019-058. This resolution sets the township employee salaries for the year 2019. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the employee salaries for 2019, which obviously were the subject of a fair amount of discussion during the budget sessions? Seeing none, can we have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll move the resolution.
I'll second.
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye. Okay, now we move on to ordinances. So we have a public hearing of an ordinance, that's ordinance 2019-007. The ordinance authorizes appropriating $40,000 for the 2019 capital plan for facilities in Bedminster Township. May we have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Judy, what we touched upon this, I think, at the last
So
meeting.
we had introduced this originally at $25,000, and then Mr. Mance had met with Committeeman Hickey regarding a direct install program, energy program, that we had the opportunity to be candidate for. However, the cost to do the complete program was more than the $25,000, so we did up this ordinance to $40,000. We did have funding in the capital budget to do this, so we changed the amount, reintroduced, noticed it, and here we are at the public hearing.
And part of this is enabling us to take advantage of the direct install program with respect to some lighting and HVAC upgrades that wouldn't otherwise be available. So we thought best to take advantage of it now before the program, just like as we're talking about with EV, before the program is no longer funded. So this gives us an opportunity to jump now and take advantage of that.
So we're applying grant monies for the direct install, which eventually will save us
Heating and lighting
heating
costs.
and lighting and
Correct.
other utilities, or it's heating and lighting?
Oh, well, it'd be electricity through the lighting, obviously.
And didn't they give us it would pay itself back
In a
in,
very short amount of time.
yeah, short amount, was it?
Lighting.
Lighting it pays itself back in 7 or 8 months.
Right.
HVAC takes longer.
Was it like only like 5 or 6 years, I thought?
It might be a little longer, but we're also dealing with a system that is more than 35 years
Ancient.
old. So
Ancient, yes.
we're coming up to where we'd have to replace it regardless. So this gives us, good pricing advantage and a much more efficient system than what's currently installed.
There's also another program that we met on through the ESC&J, which used to be the Middlesex Educational Services Co-op, and that is a job contracting co-op, which we weren't 100% about, but after meeting with the individual in that organization, we feel we can take advantage of that, so hopefully we can put that into place also with some of this direct install at the same time.
Great. Any questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? None. Any questions or comments from the public regarding this ordinance? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved?
Second?
Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. So for this public hearing, we can vote on this tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve ordinance 2019-007.
So moved. So moved.
Mr. Hickey, you second?
I think
Stacy.
Stacy did, I'm sorry.
Yes, second.
Couldn't hear you. Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacob?
Aye. Next, we have a series of ordinances that we have already seen introduced. We've already had the public hearing on, so we do not have to reopen these ordinances for public hearing. What we need for each ordinance is a motion to approve, and we will act following that motion being made.
Yeah, these were noticed to be for a public hearing the night we were hopefully going to be adopting the budget. That got delayed, one meeting, so that's why we are where we are.
Right. So with the deferral, the approval of the budget, these ordinances that follow the approval of the budget were themselves deferred. First ordinance is 2019-003. This ordinance authorizes the first phase funding of a 2019 capital project, the engineering design for the improvements to River Road West, for which the Township has received a DOT fiscal year 2018 municipal aid program grant for $205,000 and a DOT fiscal year 2019 municipal aid program grant for $250,000. And we have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second?
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacob?
Aye. Next is ordinance 2019-004. This ordinance authorizes the purchase of motor vehicles and heavy equipment for the Public Works Department as part of the regular vehicle replacement program at a total amount not to exceed $75,000. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second?
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacob?
Aye. Ordinance 2019-005. This ordinance authorizes appropriating $351,500 for the Capitol Road Management Plan in Bedminster Township. May we have a motion to approve?
So moved?
Second?
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson?
Aye.
Mr. Hickey?
Aye.
Ms. Santucci?
Aye.
Ms. Moreski?
Aye.
Mayor Jacob?
Aye. Ordinance 2019-006, this ordinance authorizes appropriating $10,000 for the 2019 capital plan for the shared municipal court in Bedminster Township. The motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Again, roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Santucci.
Aye.
Ms. Marevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye.
Thank you.
Approval of the bill list. May we have a motion to approve the bill list?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Stevenson.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Ms. Santucci.
Aye.
Ms. Marevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Jacobs.
Aye, and approval of the bill list is subject to review of individual invoices by Township Committee members. Discussion items. Do we have anything to put on the table tonight for discussion?
I do.
Mr. Stevenson?
Well, thank you.
Please, go ahead.
Two things. At the Historic Preservation meeting, the question was asked, and I didn't know off the top of my head, whether we have an Abandoned Properties Act, zombie property type act in town, and the question is, if we don't, is it something that we want to have? And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it basically was an ordinance that when you have properties that are unsightly and they're not being kept up, and the grass is 4 feet high, and you've got code violations and dangerous conditions, in sum and substance, you put the property on a list, you give the notification to the owner that your property's been identified as an abandoned property, and you are advised that you need to take the following action within a certain period of time. If you don't, then we will do that for you and lien your property. And then some municipalities are, looking at this long-term and then looking to foreclose the liens out, to get their money back and/or to convert the property to some other use. But there have been a couple properties in town identified as potential zombie properties or abandoned properties that are just very unsightly and sort of taking away the value, if you will, of adjacent lands, and just, not something we want here. But so I wanted to throw that out there. I don't think we need to come to a decision tonight, but I want you to all think about that. And then the second thing would be, having now a child in high school, I do the 202 trek far too often, and that road is a disaster. Do we have any ideas when 202 is going to be resurfaced between Bedminster and Bernardsville?
No idea.
Who could we contact at DOT to see if we're even in the...
Meredith.
That would be Meredith. Okay, I'm going to reach, with your permission, folks, I'm going to reach out to her and ask her if we're in the queue at all. I think I actually sent her an email probably about 2 or 3 months ago, because I was doing the drive to the high school.
It's tough.
And 202 is in really bad shape.
It's in bad shape.
It's in really bad shape, and DOT was supposed to have, I believe, have acted on it a few years ago, and I think that project got deferred. I remember sending Meredith an email. I don't believe I got a response, but I do know from folks in Far Hills and in Bernardsville that they have had similar complaints about the condition of 202.
Okay.
So I think the more messages that are sent down to DOT can't hurt.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Stevenson, on your first item, since I've been on committee, I guess for a little over 6 years now, I think once in a while we've raised the zombie ordinance as what do we have in Bedminster. I think it was a couple of years ago, I attended a seminar down at the League on zombie ordinances where they went into some detail about the different levels of them. I remember John and I actually had a few discussions about zombie ordinances and what other Somerset County towns are doing. And we, at some point, decided to rely on what we already have in place, but it's subject to enforcement, right? There has been some enforcement actions and fines issued to property owners who are not maintaining their properties, and we're probably all familiar with the ones who are right there on Route 202 and Main Street. We have a couple issues down on Airport Road. There's nothing up by 206 of Pluckman, right?
Yep.
One 206 and Old Dutch.
That might be under contract now.
It's under contract now, but
Yes.
but it had been an issue for a while.
Correct.
Yes.
So we have the ability to go out and assess penalties and fines, but it does require some overt action, and the benefit of the zombie ordinance is that it does enable you to put DPW out there, and for all those efforts, you have the ability to put liens on there. It's something that we may want to consider as we move forward.
Yeah, I don't think
a
it's...
lot of this came out of the whole, through the foreclosure crisis, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you end up with folks who are giving up their houses, giving up their properties, and walking away. And they hand the key, hand the deed over back to the mortgage company, which is remote, and may or may not assign someone to do property maintenance. Oftentimes not, and the property falls into disrepair, and it's not just an issue of that one property falling into disrepair, but it's the impact it has on the neighbors and the quality of life for the folks who live around there. So that's certainly something that we can look at, and we can talk to Mr. Bellardo a little bit later about
Let me
what
know.
other towns are doing.
Yeah, we'll kick the tires on it and see what's out there.
Okay. A new business.
It's,
Okay, go to old business. Short-term rentals. Any developments from your end?
nothing
No,
since last meeting.
I think the last meeting I had mentioned was just following Jersey City was looking at introducing an ordinance on Airbnb and limiting the opportunities for short-term rentals. Haven't seen anything further on that issue yet. Engine braking.
No updates, except I did read an article about electric vehicles, as we were talking about before, and their penetration into the trucking market, because the good news is that will start to alleviate the engine braking problem, but the bad news is electric vehicles for trucks don't really start to hit until 2040.
2040.
So it's a while.
However, at some point you would indicate that current truck technology would also alleviate engine braking.
Correct. If it's properly maintained, it should not make that kind of noise. What happens is typically those trucks, mufflers aren't inspected, or they straight pipes out the engine, and that's where you're hearing that very loud noise, because those aren't inspected vehicles. But a current vehicle that's being properly maintained, you should not really hear that kind of noise.
Okay, so we will continue, just keep it on there, and once again, once in a while, survey the residents, see what their experience is with engine braking noise, and act appropriately. Pluckman Park, Ms. Sullivan.
I did get a call last week from one of the residents that we've been communicating with regularly. A couple of things. First, she commented that they had been in touch with legal aid down in Somerville. Somerville had taken copies of their recent leases and reviewed them. Came back and said, if the residents of Pluckman Park wanted to proceed with any kind of legal action, legal aid would assist them, but really wasn't anything in their leases to preclude what was currently happening. So they would have to actually have some sort of litigation for it to move forward. So they're pondering that. They're not sure what they want to do yet. She did have questions. She said during the last week or two, there have been a number of individuals seen suits, professional type people walking around with the property manager and the handyman that is there, and inspecting and asking to go into some of the apartments, which they were given access by some of the renters. So the question to me was, are we aware that maybe the Pluckman Park is up for sale? I said I'm not aware that that might be the case. And the question was, if it was, there are a number of violations that they're aware of that are currently being repaired and upgraded and remediated. And would those violations have to be addressed before the property could be sold? I said normally that is the process. When a new buyer comes in, they have to meet with the Township Committee to approve them to take on the agreement, and that would be something we would review with any potential new buyer. So, she didn't have anything specific, but it was just, it's all the rumors, just, couple groups of professionals walking around, so.
And Judy, what's the update on the enforcement actions by code enforcement?
So it's still moving very slow, snail's pace. Some of the sidewalks have been repaired, some of the handrails have been repaired, some of the walkways have had some minor repairs, but not everything has been addressed. The sinkhole that's in the driveway has not been addressed. The sewer line that's above ground has not been addressed. There's some other lighting has been looked at, but not necessarily finished. They did paint and kind of spiff up a little bit the garbage container area, which wasn't necessarily a safety issue, but it was, now looks nicer. It was freshly painted, which they appreciate. But the safety issues are more the concern than, you know, the visual stuff.
So in the meantime, our code enforcement has assessed fines.
Yes.
There's been minor action by the property owner. John, what are our next steps here?
They probably should reach out to me. I haven't heard from any of them. I'm not aware of the imposition of liens or where they're at. So if they want to reach out to me and get some legal advice, I welcome them to do that.
Yeah, Judy, please direct code enforcement to reach out to Mr. Gallardo.
Absolutely.
I will say at the Meet the Mayor session, someone did come up to me and said they did notice the improvements that were made to the sidewalks, to some of the curbing, and that they were very grateful. I also did exchange some emails with the attorney from Legal Aid, once again offering the chambers to have a meeting. She was definitely interested in doing that. And she did indicate that she gave some advice to the residents that the imposition of that utility allowance, that they should not pay it. So I don't know whether there's been any action by it or not by the residents. I hope they're following the advice of council. But
Yeah,
that's
so in
between
order for
them.
them to take the next step, the group would have to decide that they wanted to do that. Legal aid would help them, but they
Right.
haven't.
Or the landlord would have to come after them for not paying a utility allowance that's not built into their lease.
And that's where they're going to have it out. So if that ever happens and someone takes council's advice, doesn't pay, and then an eviction action comes, they should reach back out for legal aid to defend the
Right,
eviction.
but
That's where
I
they'll
would
be
hope
able
that
to.
that someone's going to reach out to us. If
Right, we need to know about
would
it.
not necessarily be notified if that was happening.
Great. So I'm going to follow up with the attorney from Legal Aid and once again offer the township's assistance in convening and using our resources, and if we need to use the senior van to bring people here, because
Right.
it's certainly not going to feel comfortable having that meeting at
Right.
the at Plugman Park Senior Center. So to be continued. And John, if you don't hear, can you reach out to code enforcement?
Is that
I will
Jeff.
have, they're all in tomorrow. I'll
Jeff
have
Price and?
Jeff Price and Ken Rogers and Joe Haggerty. So,
Yeah, maybe this is a good one for Joe. Just saying. Next on old business with some new developments is the JCP&L outages. So I will turn that over to Ms. Moreski and Mr. Hippie.
I'll start off, and then Renee, please fill in the blanks. It's been about 2 months since JCP&L appeared before this body. We have some good progress to report as a result of our efforts, in concert with, the tremendous work that the folks in the Hills Village North neighborhoods have done. I'd like to call them the 4 Js. Jerry, Joan, Jackie, and Jeff have done a tremendous job, bringing items to our attention, giving us photographs, giving us data. So I'll split the report into what's happening locally and what's happening statewide. Locally, JCP&L has completed their initial field inspections to kind of identify the biggest hot spots and some of the places where they need to put out fires. Repairs have already been completed to several of the rusted transformers that we saw last time, where the bottoms were rusted out. They've made some of those repairs in the Wood Duck Pond neighborhood. They've also started to do directional boring to install new conduit and cabling. That's where, instead of cutting through the road, you put a drill bit underneath the road so you can run new wires. So they've done that. They are scheduled, as Melvin referenced before, to replace the transformer near the daycare center on Robertson That's going to occur during the first week in June, but will not impact the primaries. That's a safety measure, which will also provide redundancy for the daycare and also buildings around there. One of our other topics we'd like to talk about is the power line that crosses 287 South, that entrance ramp. They are going to re-target that line to a new pole that they will put near the ramp, and that will enable high-profile vehicles to cross underneath it without pulling the wires down. That's targeted to be done by the end of June. And all these improvements, like I mentioned before, are meant to do both redundancy and reliability improvements. Statewide, there are additional initiatives happening. So JCP&L had mentioned to us at the last meeting, excuse me, the meeting they appeared in back in March, that they were looking for funding to do capital improvements. They've received approval for $97 million worth of capital monies to be spent between June 1st of this year and December 31st of 2020. Most of that money, or a lot of that money, is targeted towards much more aggressive tree cutting. They informed us last week at a small meeting we had with them that 90% of all the outages they experience are because of tree limbs and down trees. So that's where they're going to go put their monies. They're also going to be deploying trip savers. They described those last times, those are breakers that can open and then close if a circuit fault is detected. Right now, those are upstream in the network, so you'll find them on the transmission lines and the feeder lines, but they're going to come downstream, basically what's called the laterals, which are the lines that connect into the green transformers you see in each neighborhood. So what will happen is if there is a fault on the line, it'll open it up for a second and then automatically close it. And if the fault is resolved, then people will have power. It's only if it trips 3 times, then they have to send out a lineman to do a repair. So that should improve reliability, because otherwise the circuit just opens and then people are out of power and have to wait for a lineman to come out and do the correction. So that's a positive thing as well. There's a number of things that have to happen next. Everybody has some homework. We've asked JCP&L to come out to a June meeting, give an update, fill in the blanks, because as I mentioned to Tom Haynes from JCP&L last week, in the absence of information, people fill in the blanks. So we want to get an update from them, and they agreed to do that. We've requested that they...
So is that a meeting
here?
A meeting here?
Yes.
So when we have that meeting, just as we did the last time, we'll send notice out to primarily Wood Duck and Four Oaks.
So I would think that would probably be the 17th.
Want to target
opposed
that?
to the 3rd. Yeah,
Right,
well, the
because-
3rd with, the primary election and everything. I
Yeah.
would say the 17th is probably good.
So we'll reach out to Tom, get that on his schedule, make sure he's available on his team. We requested metrics on circuit performance so we can start to baseline and gauge improvement. If you work for a utility or a telco, you live by metrics. You don't go to the bathroom without a metric. These guys have them, so they agreed to share them with us and so that we can start to monitor performance. We've asked them to provide a short list of, the next set of projects that need to be done locally. Because they should always have a list of, here's what we're working on next, so we can get, a steady stream of incremental improvements. So they agreed to do that. We've also asked for periodic outside plant inspections because it can't be the 4Js going out there stumbling around the woods in the hills in Bedminster. They need to go out periodically, inspect the equipment, and see what else needs to be replaced, upgraded, refurbished, or whatnot. Those are not routinely done right now, believe it or not, which was a surprise to us. In turn, they've asked us to please inform the neighborhood associations regarding landscaping and the placement of landscaping next to transformers. So weed whackers, water, walls, they don't play well with the equipment. They share with us a photograph, and I apologize, I can give it to anybody who's interested. Here's a transformer, and here's a tree with about 1 million roots next to it. So I'm sure that sapling was planted about 20 years ago and it was nothing, but now it's impacting, the transmission lines, it's impacting the transformers. We have other photos with walls being built right next to transformers. And the problem with that is when the guys go with a pole to de-energize the equipment, they can't get physical access to the box. Or in one case, somebody built a sidewalk right next to the box, so now they can't open the doors. There are clearance statements on those boxes in terms of how far away you have to build structure. Obviously, no one's paid attention. So they will send us that information, and we committed to get it out to the homeowners associations. So at least the landscapers can be aware. I mean, even something as simple as, they got the landscapers out with the weed whackers, and they're hitting the bottoms of those transformers, takes the paint off, they start to rust. Because the grass is planted right up against those boxes, or those boxes are sitting in, a foot of mulch, and the water sitting against those boxes, and then rust occurs. So there's things that we can do to help, at least help our own situation. Look, like I mentioned to Tom Haynes last week, in God we trust, all others bring data. So our focus should be on data-driven improvements, so our residents can realize, minimal outages, better response times, and improved performance. And I think if we just keep, it's a continual process.
When I spoke to Tom Haynes last week regarding the election issues and the repairs that are being made, he also informed me he will be stopping by within the next week or so to bring around the new local representative that is newly hired in his office. Maybe you know her, Carol Bianchi.
Interesting.
Just finished her first week and is very happy to be on the job.
So she will be our new local representative.
So not Tom?
I think she'll be working with Tom or under Tom. He's bringing her to chat, he may be bringing her to the meeting.
Is Carol Bianchi used to going to, meetings with irate residents?
I think you will find her to be a breath of fresh air with respect to JCP&L.
Well said, Bernard's Township Council.
Hey, Renee, did I miss anything?
I don't believe so, but I wasn't at that last meeting, so.
But you've been shepherding a lot of the work in the hills in particular, so getting the groups together, so thank you for that.
No problem.
Did anybody lose power on Sunday? I lost power.
You lost power on Sunday?
Did you?
I did.
For how long?
Storm?
I don't know, I couldn't tell because the clocks are blinking, probably like 5 or 6 or 7 hours and stuff.
Oh, so it was a real outage?
Yeah.
Let me follow up.
But it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I didn't get a notice.
So,
I'm not sure
I
if
didn't get a
anyone else
notice
did.
either, it was really weird, so.
We had no flashing things when we got home.
Yeah.
So one of the questions I have is, certainly I think that JCP&L was kind of taken aback when we brought them in for that meeting. And we had 40 to 50 residents here from primarily, once again, Woodstock and Four Oaks. But since then, right, so there's been, the 4Js have presented you with that information and presented it to Renee, and then you guys back to Tom Haynes, then convening via email and telephone and subsequent follow-up meetings actually at the site. Is anyone else doing that? Are other towns doing that?
It's a good question.
Because I get the impression from Tom's reaction is that this hasn't happened before.
I think they've been a little shocked by that, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
And look, first of all, kudos to Jackie Weber for compiling and when having the list of outages and the conditions of the cabinets in disrepair. I mean, that was terrific. But, so I'm glad things are moving forward. And once again, we will keep this on old business so that we continue to keep track of it. And Colin and Renee, thank you so much for picking this up and running with it.
I think just to dovetail with that, Mayor, people are surprised, having worked for AT&T, a couple of well-placed phone calls will get you attention, but I think sometimes people forget. They do have a voice, and clearly our residents share with us their voice and dissatisfaction, and JCP&L is very well incented now to go fix these issues, because they know we're on them.
That's great. So, we'll coordinate with Tom for June 17th.
Yep.
And with Carol Bianchi, if she can attend as well. Does it interfere with any of our meetings, coincide with
No,
anything
we're
that she has?
second and fourth Tuesdays.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much for that presentation. This is the second round at public comments. Seeing none, let's move to Township Committee comments. We do have an executive session, but let's go with Township Committee comments and start with Mr. Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to mention on Saturday, my wife Susie and I went over to the Clarence Dillon Public Library. Thank you, Judy, for the notice that Representative Malinowski was coming by. Hadn't received notice of that until the day before, so went up and introduced myself to him at the beginning. I explained I was on the Township Committee, and I sat and think it was great that he came out here. I think it's nice to bring, government to the people. I think it's, especially in Washington at a federal level, it's more esoteric and doesn't really reach out and touch the citizens. So it was neat that he was here. I was a bit disappointed that I was raising my hand to ask a couple questions and he refused to call on me. So maybe I'll catch him next time around, but that was a little disappointing that he wouldn't take a question from a sitting committee member, but so.
That is disappointing. Certainly, we are uniquely located as, the summer White House, right? So we're the town that provides an awful lot of the logistics in providing security for the president when he's in town, and the reimbursement of those funds that we expend run through the federal government through our local congressman. So maintaining that relationship with the congressman is very important, and I would have hoped and certainly hope in the future that the congressman's office is entertaining and ready to work with our Township Committee representatives when they have that opportunity. So thank you for that report, Mr. Stevenson.
Mayor, I have no comments.
No comments, Mayor. Thank you. See you Monday. Have a parade.
Just wanted to add a little bit to what Doug said, because I got to go to that meeting. I showed up a little late, so I stood in the back and watched Committeeman Stevenson have his hand up for like 30 minutes, and he didn't get called on. But I was a little surprised that most of the questions that the people in attendance asked were of more of a national level than a local level. I would have thought with our very active residents, I mean, they come here, not today, but often when they have something going on, very, if any, questions of affecting their lives directly in our town. So I was a little surprised.
Interesting. Good observation.
That's all.
So, to some extent, this meeting represents the end of something we started, it feels like, a couple of years ago, but it was only really in, I guess, in February, which was the budget meetings. No, Judy, it wasn't that. So, we have said this multiple times, and just excuse me, this one more opportunity to thank Judy Sullivan, John Nance, Chief Carl Rock, and Robin Ray for working with us and working through the budget line by line, line by line, line by line again. And we ended up with a 0.7 increase, and actually we're spending a little bit less than what we actually spent last year. And once again, this doesn't happen by chance. This happens through hard work, and not just the hard work of the committee, but of the staff from the township. And you've heard it before, but we appreciate it. Thank you very much. We do have an executive session, and I do not believe that we will be taking any action following the executive session. May I have a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Oh, Judy. Did the voting back?
Yeah, we're back.
We're good? It is 9:29 and we are back from executive session. As we stated earlier, there's no action that we are taking following the executive session. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.